The forests of the southern Appalachian Mountains are ablaze. At a time when many people visit the mountains of Tennessee, Kentucky, and Virginia to hike and view the fall foliage, a prolonged drought has been sparking dozens of wildfires. Across the South in Georgia, Tennessee, North Carolina, Kentucky, Alabama, and Virginia, fires have burned a combined area the size of 7 Manhattans. Officials say a mix of higher than normal temperatures and a lack of rain, coupled with strong winds, is spreading the flames. The Georgia Forestry Commission says it responded to 944 fires in October, almost 220% more than the average number of wildfires in October over the past 5 years. And it's responded to 399 fires so far this November, already surpassing the monthly average. Even Metro Atlanta has felt the impact of the blazes. State officials have warned that the hazy air is unhealthy and cautioned people with breathing problems to stay inside. And in Kentucky, helicopters are being used in areas too dangerous for firefighters to enter. The fires are threatening homes and taxing firefighters with little relief in sight. Georgia's state climatologist says rain systems strong enough to end the drought may not come to the region until next year.
The governor now offering a reward of up to $10,000 for anyone with information leading to an arrest of those responsible for starting the fires, which have now cost the state more than $12 million.
The Party Rock fire has burned thousands of acres of land across 3 counties. Nearly 850 firefighters now working to contain it. Local officials telling us there are more than 400 residents who can't return home. The Forest Service stressing it's necessary, that their first priority is safety. And in the face of it all, donations for the firefighters have poured in. All kinds of food, water, and supplies. Late this afternoon, the governor held a press conference saying progress has been made, but there's a long way to go.
I want to emphasize this is not over. There's just been incredible improvement during the past 24 hours.
Despite that significant progress, the governor says it is unclear when this fire will get under control. He also announced a $10,000 reward for any information leading to the arrest of someone who may have started one of these wildfires. You may remember that he has said that he believes they were man-made, but at this point it is unclear whether they were intentionally set or not.
The U.S. Drought Monitor map released on Thursday expects that the Northeast U.S. drought will continue into February. Drought conditions are expected to slightly improve in certain parts of upstate New York. According to the Associated Press, this is the worst drought in more than a decade. It has dried up drinking wells and lake levels have dropped significantly. The drought has struck an already dry Southwest much more harshly, and it is expected to persist there as well. The dry conditions have caused an uncharacteristically high amount of wildfires in California mountains this past summer.
Tap trouble in Rockland County. Homeowners there are dealing with water that literally stinks, and the drought may be to blame for this. While it may be safe to drink that water, it certainly doesn't pass the smell test. CBS 2's Brian Coneybear has the story. It's new at 11.
There's something in the water in parts of Rockland County.
Clarity, not that bad. Taste, awful.
Thomas Merjanian calls it disgusting.
It has a metallic flavor. It has a dirt flavor in it.
The 73-year-old from Valley Cottage says he had to switch to buying jugs of bottled water about 6 weeks ago.
The water company, a French conglomerate called Suez, blames the foul odor and taste on the unseasonably warm, dry conditions that they say are stressing water systems across the Northeast.
In a statement posted on Facebook, Suez said, quote, "Despite the temporary changes in taste and odor, the water continues to meet all the standards for safe drinking water. It can still be used for drinking, cooking, and bathing."
It may be drinkable, it may be safe, but we can't drink it without holding our nose.
Rockland County Executive Ed Day has heard the complaints. He wants Suez to credit customers' water bills because of the stench.
Let them use that money to buy the bottled water they have to buy.
This is a total defense drinking water system.
Jamie McIver is a licensed water specialist whose New City company has seen a 10% jump this fall because of the foul water.
If I put a bowl of that water out for a dog or a cat, they would refuse to drink it.
Some are nervous about how much water will be available for the Colorado River next year, considering the scarce amounts of snow in the Rockies this autumn. Its immediate effects include ski resorts pushing back their opening day. According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the snowpack is off to its worst start in more than 30 years.
Uganda has launched an emergency response to address the plight of hundreds of citizens caught up in the midst of a devastating drought. Over 1 million people in different regions of the country are in dire need of food assistance as the El Nino climate phenomenon has deepened a severe drought.
These are areas which suffered a long dry spell that did not only scorch the pasture for animals but also dried all the planting materials and the crops that had just germinated. So as we talk, they are already in a level that we call crisis.
The UN's Food and Agriculture Organization says Uganda is likely to face perhaps the most extreme difficulties unless interventions are put in place.
We are working with the FAO, that's Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN. We are also working with the Ministry of Agriculture to ensure that as we deliver relief to those communities, there should also be quick maturing seeds in form of beans. And
the East African countries reported to have experienced low levels of rainfall, creating food and water shortages and in some instances causing the death of large numbers of animals.
A shocking number of fur seals are washing up on Bay Area shores. They're either sick or they're dead.
KPX 5's Don Ford tells us what marine experts are doing about it.
They're probably the cutest little marine mammal out there. They're a combination between a California sea lion and maybe a sea otter.
This rare Guadalupe fur seal is one of the lucky ones, being released back into the wild after recovering at the Marine Mammal Center. Once hunted nearly to extinction, now listed as threatened under the Endangered Species Act. The Marine Mammal Center is seeing more of them, but that's not good.
Over the last, previous 40 years, the most we'd ever rescued in 1 year is just 5. Five, and we're over 50.
These miniature sea lions eat mostly squid, but warming waters have the squid moving farther north, making it hard for the little guys to find food. Very little is known about these creatures, so scientists glued satellite trackers on them.
You can see that they go really far offshore.
Surprised, the researchers watched the seals, no larger than a dog, swim hundreds of miles out into the open ocean.
Chronic wasting disease is a growing threat to Wisconsin's deer herd. With new cases in northeast Wisconsin, the DNR wants to know how it got there, and they need hunters' help. Billy Wagness is live in Oconto County tonight with more. Billy?
Yeah, Stacy, CWD is a progressive and deadly disease, one that attacks the nervous system and causes a deer's muscles to deteriorate. Now area wildlife biologists are working to determine the extent of its presence here in Oconto County, where it just wasn't present last year.
The deadly disease is spread by deer among deer.
Nose-to-nose contact or feeding or accidental eating of urine or feces from infected deer.
Which is why in November the DNR placed a baiting and feeding ban in Oconto, Shawano, and Menominee counties, which some hunters and nature lovers struggle with.
President Obama was greeted by protesters in Athens on Tuesday. A riot police clashed with the rally-goers. Protesters hurled Molotov cocktails and rocks and also other items from behind makeshift barricades. Police responded with tear gas and stun grenades. The clashes erupted when a group of protesters tried to break through police cordon lines to reach the Parliament building and the U.S. Embassy. About 7,000 people marched in central Athens, holding banners and making anti-American chants. Anti-war, anti-racism and the leftist groups joined Communist Party supporters and labor union members to protest. People angry over the U.S. stance on the war in Syria and American relations with Turkey and the election of Donald Trump also came in droves.
South Korean President Park Geun-hye's office has dismissed a claim by the opposition that she was planning to declare martial law. Democratic Party leader Chu Mi-ae made the allegation at a party meeting earlier today. Park's spokesperson said Chu's comments were, quote, irresponsible demagoguery. Park is under pressure from an angry public to step down after allegations a friend of hers meddled in state affairs. Hundreds of thousands of people are expected to gather in Seoul on Saturday in the fourth straight weekend of protests.
Thousands living in Pakistani-controlled Kashmir have been forced to flee their homes due to the escalating violence along the disputed border between India and Pakistan. Prime Minister Azad Jammu and Kashmir Raja Farooq Haider said Tuesday that the government has now moved 8,000 people to safer places due to ongoing Indian shelling. Violence has increased over the past few months, with each reporting ceasefire violations and regular losses of life daily.
Abandoned houses at one of the deserted villages on India-Pakistan border near Jammu. People have left behind everything, including their livestock, to save their lives as border tensions between the two neighbors continue to mount. Press TV's team has visited Abdullah village near the line of control, where people have heartbreaking stories to tell.
It was at midnight and suddenly a huge explosion. We left our homes instantly to find safety in the nearby village. Next morning, as we came to see what had happened, we saw our homes in rubble and our cattle lying dead. We are scared. We always have to leave our homes because of cross-border shelling.
As we were driving along the line of control, we saw Deer Singh, a farmer, lonely and desperate, walking towards his farm. Deer Singh lost his limb when mortar shell hit the farm while he was working on. He lost a son in cross-border firing in 2015, and now his farmland remains barren and his life shattered.
It doesn't matter what happens, as bullets, shells or artillery sounds like a firecracker for us. We're always prepared to leave our belongings and run for safety. We are tired by these frequent confrontations. Why they don't go straight for a war? Maybe that can fix everything.
For a while, only 2 million displaced and 20,000 killed by Boko Haram insurgency represented the scale of humanitarian crisis created by the 7-year-old insurgency in the northeast. But the scale of the crisis there is just beginning to unravel. The UN now says it could be the biggest humanitarian crisis in Africa.
We are looking at a situation next year where 26 million people will be affected by the ongoing crisis. And 14 million of these will need international and national humanitarian assistance. And we are going to try to target from the international community in close coordination and support with the Nigerian government 7 million people. That's a huge undertaking.
Much of the areas affected remain inaccessible to aid agencies, but recent success by the military means some of those areas can now be reached, and the findings worrying.
There are currently 400,000 children which are on the verge to start to get into a famine condition. There are 75,000 out of these children, 1/5, that if we don't do something rapidly and seriously, they're going to die in the few months ahead of us.
Indications that many, especially children, are at risk of dying from famine.
The humanitarian crisis in the Northeast is set to be of global proportion. Currently one of the worst on the African continent. Pulling resources together has been a major challenge, especially in the face of severe economic crisis. The Nigerian government would be needing a lot of support from its international partners, but it's not certain how much they can rake in to help solve the problem.
Patients marched through downtown Caracas, waving their prescription and calling for the government to do something to solve the extreme 85% shortages of medicine in Venezuela. President Maduro's government has agreed to receive humanitarian help from other countries as part of Vatican-led talks to solve the political and economic crisis, though there's been no indication when Venezuelans might actually receive that aid. The drop in the price of oil is one factor in Venezuela's economic crisis, and this week President Maduro met with OPEC Secretary General Mohamed Barkindo to discuss a potential agreement to limit global oil production and potentially increase the price of oil per barrel. Venezuela, which depends on oil for almost all of its foreign exchange revenue, has pushed OPEC to slash crude output since oil prices collapsed in 2014. In an attempt to solve their political differences, the opposition and the government government have agreed to elect a new board of directors who will run the country's electoral board for the next 4 years. Both sides say they are committed to continuing a dialogue, and the third round of talks between the government and the opposition is scheduled to take place on December 6.
And finally, a London-based advocacy group says that Myanmar's military has killed scores of Rohingya Muslims in its recent crackdown. The Arakan Rohingya National Organization says that based on reports from the western state of Rakhine, at least 150 Muslims have been killed since Saturday. Myanmar's government has so far acknowledged the death of nearly 70 Rohingyas and 17 members of security forces in days of fighting. Northern Rakhine, which is home to Rohingya Muslims, has been under military lockdown following attacks on border posts that left several police forces dead last month. Since then, dozens of Muslims have been killed and scores arrested. The Rohingyas are subjected to extensive discrimination despite living in Myanmar for centuries. Hundreds of Muslims have been killed and thousands displaced at the hands of security forces and Buddhist extremists since 2012.
The Party Rock fire has burned thousands of acres of land across 3 counties. Nearly 850 firefighters now working to contain it. Local officials telling us there are more than 400 residents who can't return home. The Forest Service stressing it's necessary, that their first priority is safety. And in the face of it all, donations for the firefighters have poured in. All kinds of food, water, and supplies. Late this afternoon, the governor held a press conference saying progress has been made, but there's a long way to go.
I want to emphasize this is not over. There's just been incredible improvement during the past 24 hours.
Despite that significant progress, the governor says it is unclear when this fire will get under control. He also announced a $10,000 reward for any information leading to the arrest of someone who may have started one of these wildfires. You may remember that he has said that he believes they were man-made, but at this point it is unclear whether they were intentionally set or not.
The U.S. Drought Monitor map released on Thursday expects that the Northeast U.S. drought
fires have burned a combined area the size of 7 Manhattans. Officials say a mix of higher than normal temperatures and a lack of rain, coupled with strong winds, is spreading the flames. The Georgia Forestry Commission says it responded to 944 fires in October, almost 220% more than the average number of wildfires in October over the past 5 years. And it's responded to 399 fires so far this November, already surpassing the monthly average. Even Metro Atlanta has felt the impact of the blazes. State officials have warned that the hazy air is unhealthy and cautioned people with breathing problems to stay inside. And in Kentucky, helicopters are being used in areas too dangerous for firefighters to enter. The fires are threatening homes and taxing firefighters with little relief in sight. Georgia's state climatologist says rain systems strong enough to end the drought may not come to the region until next year.
The governor now offering a reward of up to $10,000 for anyone with information leading to an arrest of those responsible for starting the fires, which have now cost the state more than $12 million.
The forests of the southern Appalachian Mountains are ablaze. At a time when many people visit the mountains of Tennessee, Kentucky, and Virginia to hike and view the fall foliage, a prolonged drought has been sparking dozens of wildfires. Across the South in Georgia, Tennessee, North Carolina, Kentucky, Alabama, and Virginia,